היה הגדולו וירובי בבוקחו ים סיר אמרובי היה הגדולו וירובי
בבוקחו ים סיר אמרובי היה הגדולו וירובי בבוקחו ים סיר אמרובי היה הגדולו וירובי
בבוקחו ים סיר אמרובי היה הגדולו
Hello everyone, this is the fifth in the segment of Shopping for Pesach Logically, and I just want to remind everyone what we said yesterday. Yesterday we said that there's three basic opinions about non-edible for a dog's consumption items, like pills, if you can swallow them on Pesach. The Ran says absolutely you can eat them, and that's what the way the Rama paskins. The second opinion on the totally other side is the Rosh, that said that the minute you put it in your mouth, you re-edibilize it, you make it food again, and therefore you cannot. You need the medicine lists to tell you which has Chametz and which don't. And finally, the Trumat Hadeshen said, the Rosh is right, but that's only if you put it on a plate and with a knife and fork, you're going to eat a bunch of pills. But if you just swallow a pill, when you do it quickly, obviously, because you can't stand the bitter taste, that is not making it edible. Because at the end of the day, you want to get rid of it, you want it in your body, and on the other hand, you really don't want to eat it. And that's the way the Mishnah Berurah and the Magen Avraham paskins. And therefore I said that, in my opinion, you do not need those lists for bitter pills. Today I want to add another reason for that, and to suggest that even according to the Rosh, who said the minute you put it in your mouth, all bets are off, it might be okay on Pesach. There is a famous Perush on the Yoredeya part of Shulchan Aruch called the Chavot Da'at. The Chavot Da'at was not obviously his real name. His real name was Rav Yaakov Lorberboy. His year 1770 to 1832. He wrote many Perushim on various parts of Shulchan Aruch with different names. The Chavot Da'at is the part on Yoredeya, which deals with kashrus, and he deals with the following question. There's an ongoing marchloket Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish if chatzi shiur asur min haTorah or lo. Usually, in order to violate one of the many prohibitions that have to do with eating, you have to eat at least a kazayit. On the other hand, if you have to eat, like matzah on the Seder night, and again, you have to eat at least a kazayit, an olive's worth of it. But let's say you eat less. You eat what's called a chatzi shiur, half a kazayit. Do you violate or don't you violate? Ongoing machloket. In trying and explaining the point of view that says, even if it's a chatzi shiur, like a little pill, you do violate, says the Chavot Da'at, that, and I quote his words, the sover kol shehu mitam achshavei, the keshechochel kol shehu chashuv etzlo kishiur. The very fact that you put it in your mouth means it's important to you. You take the pill out of the pill case or out of the bottle, and you put it in your mouth. By doing so, you're making it chashuv, you're making it important, because you're going out of your way to actually swallow it. He repeats this in another place, in the name of the Chacham Tzvi. So let's achshavei. The famous words the Rosh used, namely when you put it in your mouth, you re-edibilize it, you make it important, is only when you eat it the way it is. But, says the Chavot Da'at, Kevanda chal shiur shalem ha'isur im ta'arovet ha'heter harei lo achshavei la'asur achila. But if you eat it with other things in it, then obviously you're not making the chametz chashuv. Why? Because taking the pill is not just made up of chametz, it's made up of other additives. It's made up of other chemicals. The only way you can make chametz re-edibilized is if you actually eat only the chametz. Namely, you take a Cheerio, which is less than a kazayit, and you eat it. But if you eat a pill, and within the 10,000 ingredients that go into the pill, you have chametz, there's no way in the world, says the Chavot Da'at, that you can make it chashuv, you can make it important, you can re-edibilize it. Because ultimately, you can't discern the chametz within it. And he's not alone. The Noda B'Yehuda, generations later, says exactly the same thing, and I quote his words. Chazinan, we see, she'iu cheshavo asher nifsalo lekelev. Indeed, if you put it in your mouth, you make it chashuv. Aval imei noach lo kemo shehu. If you don't eat it the way it is, ela shenetano ledavar achen netaken al yado ma'achal acher eino mechashvo ra'ui bifnei atzmo. But if you take, say, non-kosher gelatin, assuming it's not kosher, and you put it into another dish, and by making this concoction, all of a sudden you have a piece of gum or a taffy, then there's no way in the world you can re-edibilize the chametz inside or the gelatin inside, because you cannot separate it from the rest of the concoction, from the rest of the actual food. So in a word, if you eat a Cheerio, which is not even edible for a dog's consumption, you'll get a stomachache, but you do re-edibilize it according to the Rosh because you want to eat it, and even according to the Trumat Hadeshin if you eat it as food. But if you eat a pill, since the pill by definition has a lot of additives, and you can't separate the chametz from the rest, then you do not re-edibilize it. And Rav Kook quotes this as well. The Bechahai Gavda Mo'ila Achshave. This Achshave things works. Ma she'en ken b'ma she'eno ra'ui gam al yedei ta'arovot. De lo mo'il mechashavatei klal uvatla da'ato etzel kol adam. In a word, you cannot re-edibilize something that's in a ta'arovet, that's with other ingredients. And finally, the Chazon Ish, who usually piles on chumras, says exactly the same thing, dealing with the medicine lists, tavlaot refuah. We're talking about things that each and every pill may have chametz, but also has other things in them. And of course, they're not edible for a dog's consumption. Says the Chazon Ish, kivan de'if shala frida kemach, because it's impossible to take the flour away from the rest of the pill. And you can't use it as a starter dough, sourdough. Mutar level ol bePesach b'lefuah. You can absolutely swallow it on Pesach for medical purposes. And he goes on to say that even though there are some that say the minute you put it in your mouth, all bets are off, the Rosh, and in some ways the Trumat Hadeshin, Mikol Makom, he says, Ayidei Ta'arovet Shar Dvarim Mutar. Once it's with other things, it is 100% permissible. De lo shayach kan achshavei, de da'atei al asamim. There's no achshavei because you don't really want the chametz. You don't really care about the chametz. You don't even know what chametz is inside. You want the pill in its form, in its full form. The minute you want the pill in its full form with all the additives, then quite frankly, there's no achshavei. So according to all these opinions, a pill, even according to the Rosh that said the minute you put it in the mouth, all bets are off, seems like, according to these opinions, since a pill by definition has other things in there, and it's impossible to separate the chametz, to make it chashuv, to make it re-edible from the rest of the ingredients. Quite the contrary, you wouldn't even think of swallowing the pill without the rest of the additives. Then there's nothing to worry about on Pesach. So for this additional reason, I believe there's no reason for all those lists for bitter pills. So whoever is taking bitter pills or is prescribed bitter pills does not have to worry, can go to the drugstore, buy them, and not look at the ingredients. Number one, because the Ran said you can eat it. Number two, because the Trumat Hadeshin said that even though you put it in your mouth, you're not doing it as food. And number three, even according to the Rosh that seemed to say that the minute you put it in your mouth, all bets are off, according to the slew of opinions, the Chavodat, the Chazon Ish, Rav Kook, and the Noda Yehuda, once it's in a ta'arovet, once it's with other things, it's impossible to re-edibilize the chametz that's within it.